This is the James Poe Artistry Productions podcast. Welcome to this discussion. Perceptive readers, accurate knowledge is just that important. Accurate knowledge helps us to go about our daily lives, not only being productive, but also it's a protection, personal boundaries, if you will, where we protect ourselves and also we make sure we don't infringe upon, others' boundaries and things of that nature. But see, with the lack of knowledge, though, you can actually at times do exactly what you don't want to do, you see, because you're making decisions based off of inaccurate information or omissions of information and things of that nature. And so that's one reason why it seems to just encompass a lot where, Jesus said, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. See, that's knowledge. That's knowledge that when you apply it, it sets you free from a lot of ways of thinking and things of that nature. See, for one, I've said before, you may have an individual that grew up and just, learn good things from their parents, may not know any Bible stories whatsoever, but they do know how to maybe treat a person good or treat a person right and obey the laws of the land. Now, yet within that structure, still think about it, there's a lot to do with the conscious decisions as well, especially about how a person may make their living, you see. And really, when a lot of persons who don't know anything about the Bible at all, you see, go out to make a living, how they're going to establish their hand meal. I apologize. Something got in my throat, I think. Well, when someone, decides upon themselves that they want to make a living, you see, and, it's a conscious matter how they're going to do it. Well, if they don't have the Bible guiding them in any way at all, let me tell you, some really will take the attitude that the sky's is the limit, long as, they're not hurting anybody. You see, even though, as you know, and this is what I mean about the knowledge of the Bible helps you to still look in the mirror and see that not only does God not wanting us hurting anybody, but guess what? He doesn't want you hurting yourself either. See, and that's the aspect again of the conscience that sometimes people learn from knowledge, where they say, I remember I was doing this, or I do this, or I'm still doing it right now, or what have you. And then I read this, passage about how God feels about this situation, or he showed by real events that happened throughout history that this is what was going on. And yet God, in some of these situations, shows his displeasure as to why it happened, why it was going, when it went on. And that's one of the things that we learn about presumptuousness. You see accounts that shows presumptuousness in the Bible, how it displeases God so much. I mean, that is, from some of the expressions, it's almost like, more detestable than even regular types of sin, you see. It isn't a regular type of sin, but you know what I mean. But the whole point is that's just how bad presumptuousness is to God, to push ahead in that way. And yet, uh, when you don't have that knowledge, you see, being given to you from a young age, there's a lot of aspects, as I said again, in the business and professional world today, that guess what? It really does boil right down to a lot of presumptuousness. It does. And then when you have persons who gain that knowledge, then they realize, oh, you know what? I bet not try to bogart or usurp something in this way or that way. That's the reason why mature Christians, no matter what anybody else think or say, realize they're standing on a firm footing or ground when they say, we have to negotiate in this way to have an established agreement, which turns into a contract. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it if a person's conscience has been molded by God to be like that. And so it's interesting because when you have that world of the world we live in of do whatever it takes, etc., you see, having that proper respect for another person and for God, to some persons, they'll end up saying, oh, that individual is just scared. They don't want to do whatever it takes or what have you. Well, you know what I'm going to say to that is, you know, in some cases, I can't speak for everybody, but I am going to speak for a lot of mature Christians. Oh, yeah, they're scared, all right. But you know what? It may not be because they're scared of you. They're scared or have the fear of God. And that fear of God is more of you don't want to displease God like a loving parent. That's what that fear is. And it's a good thing that that knowledge that we've been talking about right now has instilled such a conscience in a person like that. Because why? You have a person that does have that wholesome fear of God, then you know what? You can have confidence that most likely that person isn't going to do anything or backstab you, at least not on purpose, you see. A person is not going to be presumptuous against you to such a point where they're presumptuous can end up turning you into a beast of burden. You see, getting materials and resources, you see, from a person, because that's just the way people do today. You know, there's been some companies, and I'm not going to mention any names, but sometimes in order to even complete surveys, they, in a sense, it's like they put up bogus job applications just to really use those applications just to get some type of survey done with really no intention that they was going to hire the person at all or what have you. But see, going back to the beast of burden part as well, the reason why such things has to be negotiation and be very helpful. It is so it's so funny. I'm not going to even tell you the whole aspect of this, but it make me think about something where there's been times, you see, for some persons where they really appreciated another individual so much, you see what I'm saying, their business or something of that nature. And then some persons may say to the other person, oh, that person isn't going to do anything except but use you. And then the person will say, do you know how much the people who get paid, who they use? And then some people are like, oh, okay, I see your point. And then the person goes and say, but use me then. You see what I'm saying? So the whole point is what that person was trying to do anyway. You know, it was like, hey, it didn't bother them because they knew what the wage and the compensation was going to still be, and their mind was for that. Now, remember, I told you this is normally still based on different occupations that people who may have grown up more of a, it's you against the world more focus. And so there you go. But I mentioned again, once some of those same type of individuals get this certain knowledge that's in the Bible, that you would know the truth and truth will set you free, and that the only person you really supposed to be a slave for in such a wholeness sense is, guess what? Only God himself in that sense. And so, and I'm saying this lightly so you'll get the point, And so a person may even uh, sign up for a life of, you see, just living very, very simple. And they may even say with a smile on their face, where I'm a beast of burden for God. You see what I'm saying? And so, and it doesn't mean that, they're walking around hurting and stuff like that. No, once again, you can find those people going into what I say, humanitarian fields. You see what I'm saying? They go into building projects. They do all sorts of stuff, and they will do that work. And guess what? They will do it, and they won't even ask for a dime. But guess what? When they normally come right back, or they have a family and they take care of what we call the secular things or mundane things of life, some of these same persons I mentioned before have these occupations and skills. Well, let me tell you, they make a pretty penny for it. They make a pretty penny. So on one hand, see, one of their responsibility, they're being a slave or beast of burden for God. And then they realize still part of their responsibility to God is they better take good care of their family, make money, wages for their family. And as the head of the family, that is not supposed to be usurped and taken and given to somebody else and say how they going to dispense the money or this and that. No, it's supposed to go directly to that man, that husband. Jesus talked about this is why a woman will leave her mother and father, and well, the man, well, both of them, and they would join and they would become one. I told you there's certain boundaries that God even placed upon human beings. Yeah, we're all connected, but we ain't all connected that much as some people want to try to make it seem. Now, I could go into some deeper areas on that, but I always choose to not, because I see the way God's enemy is always trying to take something. And that's why, I tell people, if I don't do something, you better believe I got a good reason for it. So still going right back now to the knowledge beats the burden. See, this is the point I want to get to, what presumptuousness can do. In some of the ways that persons, get others at times to work for them, what they will do in the knowledge that they don't have or don't care about or what have you, is they will cross over into an area, as I said before, very much presumptuousness. And guess what they're really taking away from the person? Like I said, they may be thinking they're hurting this person by hurting their wages and holding them back and stealing from them and all stuff like that. But what are they really doing? They're actually stealing from God as well. See, if this person was a Christian and they were actually doing all this stuff for God, and because of such attacks on that person's life, that now that beast of burden that was able to do a lot for God can't even do a thing at all. You see? They took that beast of burden from God. And guess what? They took it for themselves. So that was stealing from God as well. This is just something to think about. And I won't go any further, but this is just something to think about. Sometimes people wonder, why does this person seem to be treated this way or that way by Jehovah God, by Jesus? That person ain't nothing but this or that or what have you. Well, still, God sees that whole person. sees that whole person. God views that person in a way that, we may not even be viewing that person, but God knows who that person really is. So in our minds, we may be looking at an individual and saying that person isn't nothing at all, because we don't have the knowledge to really know what's inside their heart and mind and all their efforts. And yet God, who has all the knowledge, know exactly, you see, who that person is. Know exactly who that person is. And that's why you've heard me say time and time again, human beings, if it's true what God said, that we are all capable of just being treacherous people. Every single one of us have that in our heart. I'm going to go a step further. Sometimes I feel if the sin, which all of us have, imperfection in our heart, where treachery can be knocking at the door or what have you, then you know what? It shouldn't be any surprise. It really shouldn't be any surprise at times that with all our knowledge or even lack of knowledge, that we don't always still make the right decision on how to treat a certain individual in any type of situation. Because, see, it will boil down to the heart. And if the heart is leaning towards treachery, bigotry, and stuff like that, or it can really mess up some great decisions. It can cause a person to be very heavy-handed, and once again, it's like a person. I've used the expression: a person can step on the crack, and one person that don't think nothing about it. But then, if it's a person who's just not according to a certain type of or a circumstance, class, or what have you, that person will be a slave or beast of burden for somebody else for the rest of their life. No, that isn't justice. That isn't justice at all. That isn't godly at all. So I just wanted to share that with you. Have a very wonderful day, Perceptive Readers.